My name is Lana Labonte, and welcome to my living room. I am here to support, inspire, uplift, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you you are here meant to do and meant to be in this unique, amazing life. You know, we're really blessed. And I, feeling my optimal best, was reflecting last night as I was going to bed. This whole past week, I'm like, what is it about January 20th? What is it about January 20th? Most of y'all are probably paying attention to the whole Pluto's changing signs, going from Capricorn to Aquarius. I'm over here going, oh, no, there's something else, and it's historical for me. 31 years ago today, around noonish, or whatever time it was Bill Clinton was doing, and the same thing I was doing, swearing an oath, I entered and enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. Yeah. Can you believe it's been 31 years? I was 19 years old. Yeah. In another life. Basically, in another life, because that's ultimately me. I'm a cat of many lives. I'm a Leo. I've had just all these incredible, amazing experiences in this one life, and I just feel like a different person at all these different stages. And all of us are going through this. Like, life is a series of experiences. It's a series of ups and downs and ins and outs. And some days are easy and some days are challenging. And, well, of course, we don't grow within our comfort zone. So we should celebrate and welcome the challenges, because that's how we grow the most. If we're not being challenged, then how are we growing? The only way we grow is by going through the hard stuff, is challenging ourselves to the point where we recognize, wow, I'm actually capable. Because this has been my experience in life, that in all the cases where, yeah, it was hard as fuck. Yeah, it sucked. But you know, when I got out on the other side, every experience I've had in this life just showed me how strong I was, showed me how resilient I am. That when I exercised the courage muscle, it got stronger. I came back stronger. That for every extreme low, there was an extreme high. And that my happiness could still lead to sadness, because this is major life change and cycles, that changes like death, and you have to honor the grieving process, because what comes with change is the death of the old life, the death of a physical life, the death of a habit, a routine. You know, like, for example, you lose a pet, you know that when that pet is gone, there's something major that changes in your routine. Or if you lose a job, or you change jobs, or you change friends or lose friends, those are upsets in your daily life that make an impact. And when you start to acknowledge and recognize, wow, something's changed, and how important it is to reflect and to honor the cycle of that change, the grievance, the grief, because the grief, it'll weigh on your heart, it will weigh on your lungs. And that when we have heart or lung issues, it's usually because of deep grief we haven't processed. As whether it's a trauma that was never fully felt, and it also had a huge grief involved. Like, in my experience of life, that, yeah, there has to be that honoring of that transition, because that is life. That is all part of the reason we're here, is to experience it all. We can't jump ahead. We can't bypass, which so many people try to do. And I've done it in my past as well. The more we try to bypass something, the more it rears its ugly, nasty head at us in such a way that when it does, we all act like, I don't understand why this is happening or why I feel this way. Because you weren't honoring it when it was evolving and happening. What you ended up doing was you just ran past it like, let me not deal with that now. I don't want to see it. If I don't look at it, cognitive dissonance. If I don't look at it, it won't exist. We're not children. The more you resist it, the more it will persist, that the longer it will linger, because what we don't realize is the more we avoid something, it's like an invisible ball and chain. Energetically, it's still there. It's hanging around. It's like, hello. So if we resist it, we avoid it, we just act like it's not there. It's just like your inner child that's saying, hey, you know, we need a little attention down here. Come on, like we need play. We need to get out in the world. If you don't acknowledge what's within you, it will show up all around you in ways to poke you, to provoke you. So in the change cycles that we go through, no matter how small, no matter how subtle, the more profound, they're all still upsets and imprints of our lives. There are changes occurring at all times. Life is forever changing. Change is the one thing in this life that is constant. It may not appear to be different, but you feel it because it's energy in motion, and energy is constantly moving, with or without your conscious or unconscious attention. We are extrasensory beings, hence why we feel, which is a sense, and it can be a spidey sense. It doesn't necessarily mean you can see it or taste it or touch it or smell it, or it really is about you being in your awareness, you being conscious intentionally. Because with intentional living comes surprising but delightful intentional manifestations. Because where attention goes, energy flows. Where unconscious attention goes, that energy still flows. So if you're consciously and actively focusing on, wow, you know, I still feel pain from this trauma. How can I make peace with it? That conscious attention is completely different than, I don't want to deal with it. Because the resistance of it creates the actual struggle with it, creates the push-pull, the stuckness, the heaviness, the weight that weighs down on us. Whereas when you're conscious and you approach it with an open heart and a willingness to see it for what it is and feel through it, even when it doesn't feel the greatest. Like when you come from that space, there's more ease, there's more grace, whereas the other space of resistance creates that it's like a struggle. Like I said, what you resist will persist. But when you consciously take the time to address something that, yeah, it's not comfortable, it's a whole lot easier when you face it willingly, then avoid it consistently, because it'll linger longer. Whereas over here, if you're actively seeking to resolve it, resolve, meaning you find peace with it, meaning it doesn't unconsciously linger out in the background, actually driving you to do what you do. Because the more that we hold on to these things that we're avoiding, they're unconscious. They become unconscious drivers of our lives, because everything we do is coming from an unconscious realization. If you can recognize this, now think about it. If you are avoiding something, that means you have to adjust everything in your life in such a way that you have to think each time, how can I do this with the least pain possible, with the least confrontation of this other thing that's lingering off on the backside, right? Yeah. Oh, earache, sending you lots of love. Let's resolve and release that. Sometimes the earache can be because we heard something we didn't necessarily want to hear. different ways of manifestation, right? And especially right now with what's coming through, so much is being served up on a silver platter. Like, are you ready to let it go? And you may consciously know, you may unconsciously not know. It doesn't really matter as long as you are willing to be with whatever is, whatever it is you feel without even needing to know why, or even knowing what you feel and why, and being okay with that too. It's all the labels and the explanations that cause so much of the drama that reinforce the trauma. We are so amazing, us humans. We can make up all sorts of stories because all of it's a story. We are the best storytellers, aren't we? Think about it. Like, I got a story for what, I'm telling a story now. I'm always telling a story. Everything we speak is a story. And the story is guided and directed by our previous experiences. Everything we think we know, because we're thinking, and the mind is a builder, so it's constructing the story based on those thoughts. And we are fascinating too at the same time. I'm telling you, I love to watch people. I love to just, kind of eavesdrop sometimes and just listen. Because everybody's got an interesting story. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. So, January 20th, 31 years ago. Wow, has time flown? I still can't believe it was that long ago. The other day, because my car was in an accident, somebody rear-ended into me. I had an adjuster come out and he was looking at my back tag and he said, "Oh, are you the veteran?" And I'm like, "Well, nobody else is in this home but me." I said, "Yes, it's me." I said, "It's hard to believe it's been 31 years tomorrow." Because literally that's been popping up a lot. I'm like, wow. I did over just 10 years and worked in the government sector, but at the same time, I still feel young as can be. I'll be 50 this year. Can you believe that? It's just a number. So I wanted to share. This is so funny. So last night, actually the past couple of days, I have been going through paperwork like crazy because I'm trying to clear clutter, and this is just something I continuously do. And because this is a great time to clear out old stagnant stuff that you don't need, that you don't want, that isn't serving you. So here I am going through containers and boxes and doing da-da-da-da-da. And as I'm going through my stuff, and of course pictures, because I pulled out the photo album last night, or 2 nights ago. So, and it's hard to believe, this is me, by the way. So this was from 1994 when I was stationed in Omaha, Nebraska. If you can believe that. Yes, that's me. Back in the day, never colored my hair. Love my eyebrows. Yep, that's me. I got a lot of pictures. I got a lot of photos. I mean, that long ago? Do you remember that kind of hair? That was my sophomore year in high school. I mean, tidal wave. Somebody called me tidal wave because that was the hairstyle back then. And one of these is my sophomore picture and the other one's my senior year. The one on the bottom is my senior year of high school. Crazy that we used to pay for photos. I mean, gosh, we paid a bundle. It was not cheap to get photos taken back in those days. Yeah, there's pictures of me in high school, friends, all sorts of cool stuff. This particular photo album is like kind of scattered all sorts of stuff. And it's fun to look back. It's good to see how far we've come. It's good to reflect and have memories to gauge our life and our progress. And yeah, I mean, like senior prom, junior prom, me with my high school sweetheart. Oh my gosh. In another life. Some of my art. Oh, I think this is one of my favorite pictures of me. This picture right here. I think I still have that coat too. It's a vintage black blazer And I was working as a hostess at a restaurant. That's my senior year. And then that was me when I was in the Air Force. That was Omaha, Nebraska. This right here, that was my high school sweetheart. This is, you can barely see me with these pictures with me in the white gown graduating. This is my sister, younger sister. It's just really, it's nice to look back at in time. Then there's my mama. Here's another one. Okay, so this is my mom with my sister Lita and me. It's a little bit shiny from the light. With the coat of many colors. Does anybody remember the story of Joseph and the coat of many colors? That was my favorite coat growing up. This was, again, my high school senior year. This was me skipping school my sophomore year in high school. My sister. This was here in Florida. This is me with big hair again, and a bunch of friends from Ridgewood High School in Port Richey, Florida. Right up the street. Oh my goodness. It's crazy to look at pictures. I think this picture I think that's from Paris when I ran the Paris Marathon. Yep, that would be the Paris Marathon. That's what I mean. They're scattered in here. You can't tell, but that was in Paris at the Paris Marathon. That was my first marathon. Wowza, 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 wowza. Pictures of me in Hawaii, me and my mom. This picture with my mom was when I was leaving Omaha, Nebraska. That was my boyfriend at the time. Going to Osan Air Base in Korea. That was an interesting assignment. And as I was going through a lot of my paperwork, now, again, I purge paperwork over time, too. It's, oh my gosh, seriously, I've got so many photos, and some of them aren't even in books. They're in, like, boxes. But to go through photos is like, wow. Like, I'll be honest, I'm always the one taking pictures with friends, and it's kind of sad because I don't like taking selfies of myself, but there's nobody else taking pictures of me. So if you ever see me take a selfie, it's because there's nobody else taking pictures of me. I'm the one who usually takes pictures of everybody else. I've always been that person. So I appreciate when somebody else takes photos because everywhere I've lived, everywhere I've been, I've typically been the one taking the photos for everyone else. Some of the things that came up this past couple days as I was going through paperwork, especially some of my old military paperwork, kind of blew my mind. I had forgotten about a couple things. So when I was stationed in Korea, first off, I was always a go-getter, at the top, you know, like always the best at my job. I am tooting my own horn because it's a true story. Like I always went 100+% over and above, you know, above and beyond, as we say. So when I was stationed, I mean, I always got like room in the month, airman in the month, which were like just silly. You had to go up for boards and answer questions, but they were silly. But at the same time, there were ways to kind of like reinforce, you know, the camaraderie and oh, she's doing a good job in her work and all the things, right? So when I was stationed in Korea, it was only a 1-year assignment. I made senior airman below the zone, which meant I put on my rank 6 months earlier because I had excelled in my job and everything else. And I didn't just get it for like my squadron. I got it from the whole wing, which is even bigger. Like sometimes if there's not enough people to go against in your squadron, they put it up to the next level. So in Korea, I had to go up for the full wing. And so I got senior airman below the zone. So that's like a huge thing. And then I was supposed to be PCSing to DC. And for whatever reason, there was an exercise. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got out-processing events. I'm supposed to be getting ready to PCS. And so I'm supposed to be turning in my chem gear and all my equipment. And then I'm being told, don't go to your appointment, which I've shared this story before. But essentially what happened is I was told I disobeyed a lawful order. And I'm like, well, it was either miss my appointment and get in trouble or disobey the order and make the appointment. So I was kind of like caught between a rock and a hard place, and it's kind of screwed up actually. So they couldn't technically give me an Article 15. They gave me a letter of counseling, which is a pain in the ass, and a UIF, which is an unfavorable information file. Now, to go to your first, to your next assignment, to PCS, to a new assignment, to have that kind of stuff on your record, it's like anyone would, first off, number one, you can't give a UIF with a letter of counseling. That in itself was null and void and illegal. You have to have an Article 15 to actually give an unfavorable information file. So they did a lot of things that weren't by the books and that were pretty much grounds for dismissal of the whole charge of all the stuff. And they were just using it as an example because the person was upset that I did it. And I was like, this is really stupid. So long story short, I get to my next assignment, and that's how I learned about the fact that it wasn't really done well. It wasn't done within the regulations, so therefore it was something to throw in the trash. But I was told, we'll put you on probation. As long as you don't get in trouble, then we're not going to worry about it. We'll throw it in the trash. Okay. Not only that, but it's like I'm senior airman below the zone, and I come up with the UIF. It doesn't look good. It's like, what the heck? And they did, obviously. That got thrown out. Now, fast forward to when I was at NSA, my next assignment. And this is the paperwork I forgot about that I ran across last night or 2 nights ago. As I'm looking through my paperwork, see, first off, I was working on a watch floor. It was a week of days, a week of mids, a week of swings. And we had 4 shifts that rotated, 4 different groups of people that were assigned to their shifts. So the shift that I was on, we would do a week of mids, a week of swings, a week of days. And then for that was a 7-week cycle. And then we'd work 2 weeks, just a regular 9 to 5, kind of like do your admin stuff type deal. It was crazy. Shift work was never my favorite thing. And I actually found my printout of the calendar showing when I was working, because at the same time I was working on my computer science degree, and I was finding ways to be able to make classes so that when I signed up for classes, I would be able to go to school when I wasn't working. And if I needed to exchange or ask somebody to swap shifts with me, I could do that. Because the back office, when I asked them to support me to go to school, told me they would not support me, which is kind of messed up. On top of this, I've told the story about how there was a guy who asked me to swap shifts with him. So yeah, I was really good at this because I always took the initiative. I was always a motivated person, and that threatened the people that weren't. So this person who asked me to swap shifts with him wanted to go skiing. It wasn't like he had some dire education or emergency. It was just he wanted to go on vacation. And I ended up saying no. I said, no, I can't. I mean, that would have meant I'd work 7 days in a row as opposed to, no, 8 days, because in fact, it would have been 2 additional days on top of the days that I was already working that week. I said, I'm sorry. It's already hard enough trying to do the shift work. But then someone in the back office who told me no proceeded to tell him yes. So the first sergeant comes out and tells me that I have to work. And I said, that's fucked up. I said, that's unfair. And I don't see why it is I have to cover someone who I already said no for when I wasn't even supported, when I actually had a legitimate request. That anytime I've had a request to change shifts, I have spoken directly. I've taken the accountability and responsibility to find someone willing to cover me versus forcing someone to work for them. And it was wrong. And a lot of that stuff happens all the time, especially in government. So That said, I still ended up working for them. I still got my degree in the end anyway. But during that time, we were only supposed to be on the watch floor. I thought it was supposed to be a year and a half. Somehow I ended up on that watch floor for over 2 years, where everybody else, it was a year and a half. I was not a happy camper. So I found a way to get out of there. But during that time I was on that watch floor, there were two very powerful positions that I was interested in because they would challenge me more. And I really wanted to pursue something outside of this environment that I was in. The first one was Palace Chase. And for anybody out there who's been in the military, you know what it is, but I had forgotten about this until I found the letter. I'm almost tempted to go get it to read it, but that requires digging, and I just put it off to the side. In the letter, it was that I was applying for Palace Chase, which is to release you from active duty so that you can become an officer. You go to OTS, Officer Training School. And I wanted to finish my degree and become an officer at that particular time. It was 1996. And unfortunately, I was denied. And the rationale, as I read through it, was really just messed up, because it's like, here I am, a go-getter who's done exceptionally well in her career, and I have the first sergeant, and then I don't remember if it was I don't know if it was the first sergeant under the commander, but the first sergeant basically wrote on there that they had invested a lot of money in me for training me in the position I was in, which was already past the time that I should have been on that floor. Telling them that we can't afford to lose her and that they want a return on their investment. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Really? I mean, how much more insulting could you get? That literally when you got inside this three-letter agency, it was like a prison. It was like a prison sentence. Let's just say it that way. The other job was working with forensics, computer science. With the other three-letter agency, we'll say it's the CIA, right? So in this position, what they do is they go and they take this equipment. It could be completely burned up, but they teach you how to take it and still extract the data from the computers. And to me, that sounded fascinating. To be able to take irreparable computer systems and repair them to be able to reclaim the data off of them. And I'm that type of person that I've always been like a go-getter and like a sponge. And when something interests me, I want to learn. And there's nothing worse than taking someone who is willing and wanting to excel and telling them, no, we need you to sit here and do nothing. So that was just a couple more examples of my experience. And eventually I got out of that office, off that floor, and I went to go work in data processing as a database administrator we were working with a little bit of SQL, but mostly Oracle. And then from there, I went TDY to the UK, where another example, while I was TDY to the UK, where I had planned to go to Scotland, and the person that was supposed to work for me, somebody turned around and said they couldn't work for me, and that changed it and completely screwed me up on that. But then I re-enlisted while I was in Sarajevo. The same month I went to Sarajevo, Macedonia, and then I went to Macedonia at some point. And then I also had shared, there was another example of when I was stationed in Belgium, where the Mr. Rogers commander that we had, our NPC commander, proceeded to tell me how when I was applying to the White House Communications that he had applied many years ago as a young lieutenant and he was denied. No chip on his shoulder there, right? And also because like I worked with people that there was animosity for me just being me. And I'm like, wow, how screwed up is this life that miserable people, like how hard has your life been that your misery encourages and drives you to create misery for others? Like that perpetual karma, that your bad mood, like it encourages you, like when you're in a mood, what do? You mull over it, you wallow over it, and you want others to join you, because they say misery loves company, because those people haven't found peace. And yet, instead of looking for the peace, they look to drag others down and bring them down to their level, as if that will bring them out, which in reality is the opposite. It actually creates more of the misery and more of the drama and more of the trauma that we are experiencing in this world. Like, this is a great example right here. That if someone, like I worked with this one officer who was actually my supervisor when I was in Belgium. And I never made a big deal about it, but he was in the office one day, and this is the most absurd thing. Him and his wife, and I'll just straight up say, as far as I'm concerned, I saw them as alcoholics, because when we would go out, they would drink past a point where it was kind of like, holy crap, you can tell they're alcoholics, because they drink to excess. And I saw a lot of that during my career. I'm not saying I was better, because I did my own, and it's a breeding ground for it. Like, whether people are trying to avoid themselves or whatever, I mean, it is an addiction, and people drink to forget or drink to numb, right? To numb the pain. But when you numb the pain, you numb the joy too. So one day we're all in the office, and the same officer that was my supervisor, I can see his face, can't remember his name, it doesn't really matter, but he had just gotten off the phone, and he's like, oh man, my one friend, he didn't make major. It's a shame, because he deserved it, but he's had 2 DUIs. And I'm like, and actually, because I spoke up, from that point on, he started acting funny toward me. I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, excuse me, wait a minute here. You're saying you think he deserved major, yet he's had 2 DUIs. Why do people think that that's equatable to someone who deserves to be promoted? Because your promotion is also promoting your behaviors, especially in the military. And I'm just going to say the buddy system, like that's an example of the buddy system. He reinforced what he would want to be supported in himself. Like I said, he was an alcoholic from my observation. So when you have someone who says something like that, they're telling on themselves and they don't even realize it. Well, let's say that he did get promoted. So you're basically saying that it's okay to have a couple DUIs because you'll be protected. Like, that's the thing that doesn't make any sense. It's hypocrisy. That is not what gets promoted technically. But it happens all the time too. I've seen people promoted for things, and then like their back end story and their behavior does not warrant the promotion. Again, it's that buddy system and things that I experienced while I was in the military. And then I was sent to my next duty station. But you know, all of that karma, all that craziness of people trying to put me under their thumb, which was really, really fascinating. Like, I didn't invite it, but I also will say that I think energetically, and even looking over the course of my past, there was that energy of my enthusiasm, my exuberance that threatened people. And it drew attacks from people who in themselves couldn't see that what they were having a problem with was also an aspect of themselves. Like, what you dislike or you admire in someone is an aspect of yourself. We all got it because we can all spot it. You can't recognize something unless it exists within you at some point in time. So although I had a lot of naivete throughout the course of my life, I wouldn't trade it for the world. In a lot of cases, I would be slow to respond and recognize the situation until it was too late or long after, to where I didn't have the opportunity to respond or properly defend myself, because I wasn't exactly set up with the tools or the awareness of what was really going on. Like, I didn't understand the game. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. I had to defend myself by not volunteering too much. My dad used to always say, never volunteer to, information. Now I understand what he meant, but yet it's more about being sacred. It's about honoring and also recognizing who is trustworthy and who is not. It's not that I didn't trust myself. It's just that I didn't recognize the people around me who were not trustworthy. And so my inner child would be like, everybody's trustworthy. Everybody's a good person, unless they show you differently. So it took a lot of my life to recognize that I had to learn to discern. I had to learn to recognize, okay, I can see your soul. I can see your soul's potential. But where's your human operating from? Is it up in here or is it coming from here? And that's where I've really come to in my life, is that huge discernment and awareness and recognizing that I can see it now. I no longer play the, what I want it to be versus what it really is. Yes, I want you to be at your soul's potential. I will be your biggest cheerleader, but if you're not operating from that space, I can't be hanging out and holding out for you to get there. This has been a continuous theme throughout the course of my life, and I know I'm not the only one. I know many of you out there have been like, but it's such a shame. You have such great potential. I mean, come on. We've all been like naive to some degree in our lives to where they're such a good person. Yeah, everybody is until they're not. And when they show you who they are and where they're operating from, accept it. Let them be. You don't have to compromise yourself so that they can catch up. And this is one of the big things about life, is you need to stay the course. And in some cases, we allow people to distract us from our own course because we think we want to fix or help others catch up to us. Or we see the potential, so we want to help them get there. That's not our business, people. In fact, that's probably the righteousness that is out of place. Because when you think you know better for another, it's a distraction from doing what's right for you. That was my lesson I'm sharing with you that I learned. That for all the people that I allowed to stay in my life longer than their expiration period, it just meant I was having more of a trouble of letting them go than it was time to go. And this is part of the change, is we have to be willing to move forward when others aren't going to come with us. And so this is a really big theme in this year. This is the year where you have to align. You have to step into your destiny, onto your path if you're not already there. And stay the course. Stay stoic. Stay committed to you, because only you can do that for you. And you cannot play the victim. That game is gone. This world is trying, not the world itself, but this cult of personalities. What we are seeing around us is trying to invert, pervert, twist it inside out, upside down. It's a complete inversion and perversion of what we know to be true. We're not here to fight it. We're here to build the new. What does that mean? It means all the world's a stage. Now step into your role, onto your path, in your story, where you're meant to serve. If you can effectively benefit others through the gifts and the service that you're here to bring, that's where you need to focus. That's the direction you need to head. Because everything else will be a distraction deliberately intended to take you off that course. And a good portion of my life, that I recognize. I saw how my own fears caused me to stay longer where I should have gone, allow people to stick around longer than their expiration, and also play small where I'm meant to stand out. My life has been a series of deep, powerful lessons and blessings, because that's what they are. You have to be willing to see both sides of the duplicity of your experiences, of situations, of the words you use, because this is a life filled with contrast and polarity. There will always be at least two versions opposing each other that equal the whole story, the whole situation. A word has at least two meanings. And without knowing the full story, you're not well informed. When I say informed, I don't just mean information. Again, duplicity, languaging, right? Words cast spells. The stories you tell, you reinforce your own spell. To be well informed, that's wellness. Inform, that could be everything from physical fitness. I'm in form, I'm in shape. I am in physical form, in form, but also informed means you have the information at your disposal, and they work hand in hand. You want to be very aligned and well aware of your inner truth, your innertude, your own self. Know thyself. To thine self be true. Do you know truth? To thine self be true. Truth is a feeling. You cannot deny what you feel. Hence why when you feel, you know something, you sense it, because it's truth. That is the huge key to anyone out there that says, well, I don't know if I have an intuitive gift or if I'm psychic. Yeah, you do. You do. You do. And you are. It's in that feeling that you're already connecting and sensing the truth of you. Anything and everything, I feel something's off. Ooh, I felt an energy. Whatever the languaging you put around it is telling on the fact that you are an extrasensory being. You are sentient, you sense. Don't dismiss that. Never dismiss that. How many times have you thought or said out loud, I felt something, and then you made the motion of it being in your stomach, or you felt it in your throat? Like, really be attentive. If you're just now honing your gifts and learning about them, start writing them down. Start writing in a journal. I feel. Okay, what do I feel? Zzz, something electric, something biting. Where do you feel it? My throat, my stomach, my back. Ooh, you know, the tingles, the whatever it is. These are the ways that your spirit, your soul, get your attention to tap in and tune into what it is you're sensing, and what's the first thing that pops up. What's it in relation to? Is it around another person? I mean, how many times do you walk in a room and you're like, you can feel the room? Like, okay, this doesn't feel comfortable. And you have to also be willing to confront, is it uncomfortable because you don't like to be, you know, in situations, or that you have a fear of public speaking or crowds? Sometimes you have to challenge that to learn which direction that's coming from. Is it the sympathetic system of stress response of like, okay, we got to fight, flight, or freeze on this. We got to flee the situation. Or is it, oh, this is unfamiliar? There's a big difference between the two. One is saying there's a threat here, and the other one's saying, I think there's a threat here. It's just unknown. It could just be a story, right? But this is how we start to hone our gifts. Our ability to feel is our greatest gift. It is what heightens our into me I see, the intuition, the intimacy that you have your heart and soul with. That your spirit moves through you. Your spirit is what moves you. the breath of life. And everything in my life, God bless. I will tell you right now, for all the hard lessons, I'm very grateful, because had I not had those hard lessons, I wouldn't see the things I see and how distinctly and clearly I see them. Simple examples, like when I was in a narcissistic relationship, like, wow, I was teaching beyond addiction, and here I am seeing this stuff playing out in front of my face and having it thrown at me, and I'm trying to find a way out of it. That was really powerful. Having someone twist your words around on you and try to make you out to be the bad guy, I was like, wow, I see this all in real time. So, fast forwarding through my documents, because I really enjoyed going through my paperwork. And then there was a certain point that I realized, wow, there's some interesting stuff here. I got documented proof of fraudulent behavior. Like, especially when I started working for Antion in 2005. So, first off, when I left Bratislava, Slovakia, and I was offered the job to work for Antion, they never submitted, and I did not know this, I don't even know how they got travel orders for me without getting approval from the government, I'm trying to think, the contract officer. I'm not sure how they pulled this stuff off, but I can tell you right now that I got the documentation that they never submitted. They gave me travel orders. That meant the whole chain of command was involved with the fraud there. You know, the buddy system that Antion submitted for me to work in Naples, Italy. But it wasn't until I went to my next job when I realized they were taking advantage of me, not for that reason, but because of the way that they owed me money. I had a sign-on bonus that they proceeded to tell me that they didn't want to honor. And so I was afraid they were going to actually they were bullying me. They used a bully tactic, well, you can submit for it, but we could change our minds, and you'll have to pay back all the travel. I mean, talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. But looking back, I never stopped to think about calling them out on their bluff, which I bet if I had done, would have all worked out. But then see, they were already shady from the start, as it was finally revealed, but long after I left them. So their stuff didn't actually get revealed to me until like a few years ago. It didn't click and dawn on me what transpired. These guys, most of them were prior military. There were a couple that weren't, because they were just in the system and they were part of the buddy system, right? So Antion, when I realized they were shortchanging me on my performance report, where that one person that I was stationed in Omaha, Nebraska, who used to live across the hall and spy on my room, proceeded to say, I don't know why they think she's such a great person. I barely saw her. Yeah, because you were here for a different purpose. You weren't here to give me an evaluation. That was not his job. And he was not my colleague in my work environment. Like, I wasn't even in the military at this point, and they're still playing these games. But again, let's go back to, why do miserable people think it's okay? What is it that it took for the misery of that individual to think it was okay to be nasty to other people? See, the only people who do that are jealousy, envious type people. Anytime you proceed to pursue giving others a hard time is because you're not happy with yourself. That's not a reflection of the other person. That's a reflection right back on you. And that's what I experienced a good portion of my career, is that my happy-go-lucky was a threat to people who were not so happy and definitely, apparently, not so lucky. So therefore, in their minds, they thought they had to pull a power trip to feel better about themselves. So he goes back and he tells my supervisor, and who didn't even work with me because I was by myself in Naples, Italy, working at the NATO base. Everybody loved me except for the people who didn't work with me. Figure that one out. And of course, there was the military history too, right? There was a guy that I had made a comment to his girlfriend one time, and I think that he had a little vendetta against me. So maybe that was part of it. You know, it's these little, what's the word I'm looking for? Animosities. And that's karma. That when you don't do right by somebody, you got to live with that shit. And that shit will bite you on the ass. If you are somebody who proceeds to feel the need to seek that type of nasty justice in your mind, because in your mind you think it's justice, but in reality, it just is, and you can't accept it. So you're trying to change it. You're trying to form it in your direction, right? There's another example of inform. You're trying to mold something in your image of what you want it to be. That's playing God, we call it. So fast forward to where I was just so, I felt so devalued. I felt not appreciated, because as a result of that particular evaluation, it meant I wasn't going to get a raise. And I'd already taken a huge pay cut to take that job. So I said, okay, well, I started looking at other jobs, and I found the other job working at the other base for CSC, who turned out to be another bad company, but that's, you know, that was another lesson. And when I decided to take that other job, I gave my notice. And like I've shared that story before. And when I gave my notice, I was told, well, you haven't been with us for a year yet. How about you stay until this date? I said, you know what? When's the year date? I think it was a matter of like, my notice was only like a week or two short of what they wanted me to stay longer. I said, you know what? I will give you exactly a year, no more, no less, based on everything that the way I was treated. I'm done. I don't need to stay longer. And see, the thing is about fraud with the government, they say that you would have to pay that money back, but they've already received that money. So they're not going to expect you to pay it back. Again, it's another bully tactic. So I went on to the next job. And it wasn't, like I said, until years ago that I figured this all out. But at the time, I was having trouble because my permesso di soggiorno, my Italian work visa to be able to work on the military base, was delayed and flagged. It turns out the reason it was delayed and flagged was because they didn't renew it. The previous company, Antion, which became General Dynamics, by the way, they never submitted for the changeover from my company, which was Northrop Grumman. And because they didn't submit, there was a gap of time in which I was working for Antion that flagged me. And they were confused, and they were literally pointing out, well, wait a minute, how is she able to work this other job? Now, that wasn't any fault of my own, because I wasn't in the contract loop. I wasn't in that chain of custody for that paperwork. That went back to the government side, and that works through the contract company. I'm just the employee. I provided everything that was necessary from my part. So because they didn't, they could be charged on fraud. Now, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that, but at this point it's way past probably. It doesn't really matter. But it's just to show and to draw a picture of how much shady shit goes on. And that no matter how good of a person you are, there are going to be miserable people out there. But you know what? I'm good with me. This stage in my life, I'm okay with where I'm at because I learned some valuable lessons. Yeah, it sucked. It cost me a lot of money. I literally was abandoned in a foreign country because everybody tried to act like I didn't exist. Instead of using me for my professional skills, gifts, talents, and abilities, or the fact that I even had a TS clearance. I mean, hello, that's in itself is invaluable. Like you get hired for the clearance a lot of times. And so that last company, yeah, they were some shady characters as well. I mean, the guys were sleeping on the job and trading stocks during lunch hour, or not lunch hour, but during work hours. And yet I was used as a sacrificial lamb because the government wanted that company gone. The people they sent out from Okinawa, from Japan, were buddies of the contract officer of the, what do they call it? The CSO? It was the contract company program manager. His name was, I believe his name was Ken. Let me just say this. He sent out the guys that were apparently having issues in Japan, and then they had issues in Italy. And although I was really good at my job, I got blacklisted because that's what happens when people talk. And I don't even think it was just with CSC that I was blacklisted. Again, I didn't connect all the dots until later. My understanding, my understanding at this stage is that on General Dynamics, for the shady shit they pulled on me, they put word out there to blacklist me, as well as CSC. So it was almost like I got a double whammy from both sides, which is pretty fucked up. But again, you know the definition of karma is when you don't correct your behaviors and you continue to do the same things over and over again. Again, like I said, this is the definition of crazy. You can think that you can get away with things, but eventually that stuff catches up with you. So it wasn't until, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago that I started going, holy crap. I was even having a conversation with another friend of mine that I know from high school, and she was in the Navy, and she was pretty high up there. And I told her some stories, and she knew some of the same circles because she worked in the same intel environments. And when I shared my stories, she was like, holy shit, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know exactly what you went through. That's fucked up. I said, yeah, it is. Isn't that crazy? It's a lot harder, and I hate to say it, it's a lot harder for women because, boy, when they make an example out of you, you know, they try to make you look crazy. I'm not saying I looked crazy because that wasn't the case, but, you know, like I said, years later in 2009, because I lost my job in February of 2008. In 2009, when I was interviewing for a job, I had a chief master sergeant. He was retired. And he said he had asked me for my side of the story of everything that transpired, and I told him, and he apologized. He said, I am really sorry that happened to you. He goes, it's unfortunate, but that kind of thing does happen, and I'm aware of it. And he said, thank you for sharing your side of the story, because he had heard through the grapevine, because it's a small environment. The intel environment, if you have a government clearance, is a small environment. When you've worked in 3-letter agencies, when you've worked in those circles, they can make or break your career just based on someone talking shit about you. Whether it's true or not is not even relevant. If you upset the apple cart, they will make sure they get rid of you. And it doesn't matter how good you are at your job. If it makes them look bad or they make them feel like you're a threat, they get rid of you before you could ever influence getting rid of them. That's what happens. It's like the whistleblower. It's like technically there should be no retribution against the whistleblower, but 9 times out of 10, you can be the whistleblower and you're the first person they get rid of. They find ways to get rid of you. They will break you. They will destroy your life in a lot of cases. I mean, I started thinking about this over the years. You look at these different people that have been called out throughout the government, right, over history. And there's so many different names. I'm not even going to name any of them. I mean, people know because some of them are still there. And it makes me wonder how many of them were truly whistleblowers for the right reasons, as opposed to being condemned and put as the sacrificial lamb and taken out as they're traitors. Because it's ironic that you're supposed to report fraud, waste, and abuse, or any type of fraudulent, not just fraud, but like threats to supposed security, which, by the way, I just want to say this. Having worked in those environments as an American, you know, like being part of this country, isn't it disgusting to even conceive of, to even think this is a threat to our national security? It's like the fact that you can't be informed because it's going to threaten our security. I'm sorry, just take a look around. Do you feel secure? Do you trust these people? I've worked there. I certainly don't. I've gotten to a point where I can recognize, I'm like, these talking points are just big bullies. And the fact that you're an adult, we can't tell you because, you know, you can't handle the truth. You know, like, seriously, I'm an adult. Just like I can cross the street without having to be told if it's safe or not. I look both ways. I can take personal accountability and responsibility, but we are living in a nanny state. We are living with Big Brother, Uncle Sam, you know, Big Daddy wants to tell you what you can and cannot do. And if you're not careful, they will lock it down on you. That if you're not willing to take back your personal responsibility and accountability and you keep on relying on the system, eventually that virus will infect you. Get the clue? Ironic, isn't it? It's in the languaging. Don't let it infect you. Because even through the power of suggestion, that is how we manifest. Where attention goes, energy flows. If you listen to the languaging and the word spells that are cast, if you're somebody who watches TV, you're being programmed. And again, repetition is the key to mastery. Whether it's something you speak, you do, or you hear, consciously or unconsciously, you're being programmed. So you hear it enough times, you're going to think it to be true. Question is if you're paying attention to what you're allowing in through all of your senses. You have to be very locked down and very protective of your energy. As an extrasensory being, you need to take accountability and responsibility for what you allow into your circle, into your energy, into your space. Make that a sacred space, a sacred head space, a sacred heart space, a sacred what you watch and look at space, what you are willing to hear and speak, what you touch, what you taste and smell. I mean, come on, look around you. They're trying to get us from every which direction. Until we say no, they'll just keep on pushing the boundaries, pushing the limits. When you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And they won't stop. They could be anybody. And they want you to be worried, in fear, untrusting. But that's where I go back to. If you learn to trust yourself, you don't need to worry about those untrustworthy people because then they've already established themselves. When you learn to trust your being, your feeling, your spidey senses, you tap into your intuition. When you get right with you, all that other stuff is superfluous. It's a distraction. It is just, it's there to take you off your course. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. But the most important thing is that you get right with you. If you can't get right with you, you're going to give it away for others to take advantage of you, to infiltrate, to inform you, to make you in their form, to cast the spells. Conscious or unconscious, you have to be willing to see with real eyes, with their third eye, right? Close thine eyes and make them one, right? You got to tap into that sweet spot. So I know I'm talking a lot over here, but I really wanted to impart a lot of wisdom for what I've learned in over 31 years. I mean, I'm going to be 50 this year. Right now, I am in my year of intelligence, the cycle of intelligence. Every 7 years, you go through a cycle of intelligence. Every 11 years, it's a cycle of consciousness. And every 18 years is your vitality. And the more you're aware of the cycles of your life, I mean, there's other cycles too. We are always changing. It's just how often are you taking the time to stop, slow down, really reflect on how far you've come, the lessons you've learned, the wisdom that you've gained and gleaned from those experiences. We can amass tons of information, but if we don't integrate it, it doesn't become wisdom. If we don't experience it, it's not ours. It's an external thing. We, again, internalize, we integrate in to me, integrate, right? It becomes a part of us. Wisdom, gnosis. Some gnosis is just a part of you from the moment you were born. Whereas the wisdom, a lot of times, it's coming through your experiences. So celebrate all of it. There have been some hard times. There have been some good times. I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. I really wouldn't. Because I wouldn't have the stories I got to tell. Like, sometimes I'm like, most of the stories that I tell, some of my friends are like, I wouldn't believe it if you didn't tell me. I said, yeah, but I lived it and I have a hard time believing some of it too, you know? Because it's humility. With our life experiences, it teaches humility. It teaches humbleness. And it also teaches you that divine universe, God, source, has a sense of humor. Hence this divine comedy. And until you get right with you, how are you going to be able to lighten up and have a little fun too? Like, you're here to also recognize that there is humor in all of this. That we can take it serious. I mean, I can go on a serious tangent. I can go on a funny, comical roll. I can just pick up and go wherever I need to. Right now, I'm on a roll of just purging. You know, I've had the urge to purge lately. And it feels good. It feels so good. And in my last video, if you missed it, go back and listen. I'm telling you, this period is powerful. And I cannot express enough how much golden nuggets I've been learning about correcting my status on top of what I've been doing. Listen, all I can say is the world is run by banks. And until you learn to play the game will play you as the pawn in this Ponzi scheme. When you correct your status and you get on the right side of the banks, they serve you as opposed to you serving them. Money is actually part of the spiritual war. And I know most people out there, you know, I'm in the spiritual community and, you know, it's not supposed to, I'm not supposed to want or like money. It's like all bullshit belief systems, right? BS. Belief systems. Where did that story come from? Always confront the story. Where did it originate? Is it really your story? Is it really your truth? 9 times out of 10, all the stories are BS. Again, BS is belief systems. It's kind of, again, the divine comedy of life. But until you value yourself, you won't be right with money either, or currency. It's a form of exchange. Just like the old sayings that they used to say, my mom used to say it, my dad would say it, nothing comes without hard work. I'm here to tell you, you can do it the hard way, or you can find the ease and the grace in doing things and still have challenges, but not be struggling. There is a healthy version of challenging yourself versus the struggle and the martyr of, I have to bleed it out of me. Like, we're not here for that shit. Come on. This is really literally the period of like awakening from our old disempowering belief systems. We're here to be empowered, but it has to start from within. If you don't raise yourself up, who else is going to? Because you got to do it for you. You know, they say you can't lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink the water, right? It's the same thing in this life. We're here to do it for ourselves. By doing it for ourselves individually, we're inspiring one another and raising the collective together. The more people that work on themselves, that heal them, correct themselves, collect their parts, become whole, that helps everything out there that most people are upset about. If it upsets you, you go do your work and it will correct itself. If you have no direct influence, don't think that you don't have any influence. Again, this is the duplicity. This is the duality of this world. Again, we have polarity. There will be an indirect effect and a direct effect. Some of us will see atrocities in the world and have no direct effect on it. So yelling and screaming and complaining or bickering or being on social media and blasting it all doesn't necessarily have any effect. It could be that it's just distracting you from your indirect effect. So consider that. Don't feel guilty because you can't do something, because you can. You always can. But it doesn't mean it has to be directed at that in your own life, when you get right with you, that will be the indirect effect. That the true shift in the collective consciousness, again, is getting right with you. The atrocities we see, just like I say, if you're triggered, whatever your trigger is your work to do. If you see atrocities, that's because it's still in you. What shows up in the world around you, what you see, where attention goes, energy flows indirectly, unconsciously. So why does it even show up to you? Why would you see it? Because it's unresolved in you. So that trigger is an opportunity for you to turn it inward and say, at what point did those types of atrocities happen in your life that you felt helpless and unable to overcome them? But you're an adult now, and you're at this stage in your life to where those atrocities that happened to you no longer belong to you, and they're no longer there. It's just a story. It's just a backpack that you've been carrying for so long. You haven't made peace with it. Everybody wants peace in the world, but they don't make peace with themselves. The truth is, you want to see peace out there? You really want to see peace out there? Make peace in here. The world will never be at peace if we can't make peace with ourselves. That's the truth of the matter. And if I haven't imparted any wisdom to anybody out there, let that be the golden nugget from this. If you want to see peace in the world, excuse me, I apparently need to take a pause. The only way we're going to find peace, when you want to see peace out there, you have to start in here. Everything starts with self. Read the book by David R. Hawkins, Power versus Force, the human determinants of human behavior, the determinants of human behavior. There you go. Great book. In that book, very simple, everything starts with self. If you want to change the world, you know, all the great teachers say the same things, just in different words. You want to see change in the world? Be the change you want to see. Gandhi, hello. That's what he means by that. You want to see peace out there? Make peace in here. You want to see change around you? You got to be the one to change. You know, I've had this conversation with many people where they complain about it, the way other people treat them. You know how I had to learn? Because I didn't like the way people were treating me. My relationship with my Italian boyfriend back in 2008. We were arguing. It was volatile. I went home. I saw my dad with his wife. I was like, holy shit, this just brought back a whole memory of my mom and my dad and them fighting. And I was like, oh, I'm in a relationship like my parents. And it felt icky. And then by seeing that, I knew I had to change something in me because he was reflecting my story back at me. And I was probably doing the same for him. Sometimes it takes those extremes in our lives for us to actually get it. You know what I mean? Like, does your life really need to get that extreme for you to recognize the patterns are just stories in your head that you manifest in your life? And again, the stories you tell are the spells the stories you tell reinforce and cast the spells of your lives. These are the spells of our lives. Because it is. So again, whatever it is you see in the world is just telling you what you need to do in your life. You're triggered, it catches your attention, it's charging you up. It's simply showing you your work to do. And until you recognize that that's in you, it will continue to show up to you externally. Because again, there's also that little inner child that says, you're neglecting me. And every time you go out there, I feel voided, devalued in here. And the inner child says, okay, fine. You're not going to give me attention in here. I'm going to show it up out there. So that every time you see it out there, you have to be confronted within. It's like this, again, we attract where we're at, consciously or unconsciously. Energetically, it will show up outside of us until we look at it inside. In all the world, be the change you want to see in the world. That's really the big lesson of this life. The collective consciousness is playing out its shadow right now. Nobody wants to see the shit, but guess what? We're flinging it all around at each other. If you remember, if you've seen some of my older videos, it's my favorite way of explaining how we go through this life. We're basically a bunch of traumatized children running around in adult bodies, trying to get our childhood unmet needs met through one another. So we're just flinging shit left and right. Like, you're supposed to meet my needs. You're supposed to show up to me this way and that way and fix the past. That's called the shadow. The shit we don't fix is our shadow. So flinging your shit at one another isn't going to solve anything. Your drama creates your trauma. Your trauma attracts drama. So if you're a drama queen, recognize it's the trauma that is creating your drama. That all the world's a stage and you're living it out in the world stage. You are the star of your own show. Sometimes you're playing an extra in others, but you get to determine what that story is. You get to tell the story you desire. Do you still want to tell the disempowering story, or are you ready to empower yourself? So when you're ready, sometimes you got to get sick of your own shit. I know, because I was there. That when you've been through all of your experiences, how many times were you throwing something at someone else that it was really your own stuff? This is what we call eating humble pie, or eating a shit pie, whatever you want to call it. Either way, sometimes it doesn't taste so good. So I hope this has been eye-opening and enlightening. I hope you enjoyed my stories. I got lots of stories like that. But those are the ones that came up the other day. And it's always good to reflect. Look at where you've been. Look at where you're at. Are you happy with who you are? Because if you're not, you need to start writing what it is you want to change. Whatever it is you dislike, you got to find what you do like. Because again, this is what contrast is all about. When there's a dislike, you got to like. Because the two halves make a whole. So you got to balance it out. Weigh it out. Acknowledge that you got tools. You got a pen, you got a paper, you got a device, whatever it is, write it down. Really reflect and recognize, recognize. Look through your eyes and close your eyes and just go within. Just be with what is. Even if it's uncomfortable, the more you're willing to face the discomfort, the sooner you'll face your own comfort. Because sometimes, well, not sometimes, 99% of the time, the only way you're going to find your way to your comfort is to go through the discomfort. And that builds courage. It builds resilience, because that willingness shows you it doesn't kill you. It makes you stronger. That's what resilience is recognizing that no matter how hard something may appear, you're still here. Hey, come on. Just celebrate with me. We are our ancestors' longest living relatives. Like, we are the descendants of the original people. We're still here until we're not. So let's make it better. And let's start with ourselves. Alrighty, I think that's enough for me. So much love from my heart to yours. Please click the like button, click the subscribe and the notifications bell. Sharing is caring, because if this tickled your fancy, or at least made you laugh a little, made you happy, or maybe even sparked something in you and you think somebody else out there could use it, sharing is caring. Sometimes you send a video to somebody, sometimes they actually watch it and it inspires something in them. It brings them back to life. It reminds them that they're okay, because we're all okay. Just look in the mirror and just give yourself a big smile and say, I love you. You matter. I'm so glad we're here together. Seriously. Again, mwah, so much love from me to you, and I'll see you on the next live stream.